Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Android today. Okay, phone. We've been messing with sort of the lower level components, or the components that are sort of the new features within V2, or expanded features within V2, and that. The intent was to sort of lead up to how does that affect these other larger pieces of the puzzle. And one of the newer features is Android or mobile. In this case, we're going to do Android today. Potentially in the future, we'll do iOS, but my Mac is currently all work stuff, so I'm gonna have to do some cleaning to deal with that, or I have to prep a little bit more. But was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago? I'm just going through the chat here now. We were looking at multi-view, so multiple web views in a single window. On a desktop app, that's maybe less of a benefit because you can have multiple windows. But when you're on mobile, things change a little bit. So when we were discussing topics, I'm still scrolling through the chat. I do not remember who recommended it. Well, that's a bummer. Well, if you end up popping in the chat, say something. I definitely remember. I should have written it down. Apologies for that. But what we want to try is, let's see if we can get mobile just working straight away. Android. Once we get there, then we're going to try some of these features that we know may have potential issues, and we can see what the errors look like and see like what our options are there. So it's not going to be like a tutorial how to do mobile. That can be something separate that we do. But this is more of just a what's the feature set and how can we push the features that we have in Tauri on the Android/mobile side. Turn music down just a tad here. Okay. Oh, wrong button. Did it? Oh, I had this up the whole time, didn't I? Ta-da. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got a little kids are sick. Usually means I eventually get sick, and I avoided it for a fair amount of time, and it finally caught up to me. So hopefully I don't lose my voice here. We are currently in the Tauri Playground repo. This is a repo that we've pretty much all of these things here we've done on stream. I think all of them we have. The most recent being multi-web view in this repo at least. I think with the current configuration that multi-web view is not going to work. So we might need to play around with things a little bit there to get it to actually function. I don't remember what version the rest of these are on though. So this is a 1.0. I think the Tray app is a beta. It looks like maybe a beta of 2.0. Yeah, this was where we were. I think we were messing around with the Tray app or the window dialogue, something like that. So something with the Tray app or something, but we were working off of a branch. So we're gonna come back around and fix that. That might be next week. we'll see. We'll see. Sidecar is 1.0. I think EGUI is also 1.0. Yep. Leptos, I believe, is also 1.0. I don't think we have very many 2.0 yet. 2.0. Oh, I'm looking at the root one. 1.4. Local first data is 1.5. Okay. So we've got potentially 2 or 3 apps I think that we could try with Android even. We've got the multi-web view. We've got... We might need to tweak that to get it to work. We've got the multi-web view and we've got the transparency. So I think those are going to be the 2 that we try it in. Let's try the multi-web view first. Let's try that first. So I went ahead. I tried to do most of this stuff on stream, so y'all get the benefit of seeing how I deal with issues. Here we go, prerequisites. I have configured this though, so I do know that it runs, because I didn't want to have to install 1 gigabit file on stream, gigabyte file on stream, and then have to restart my computer or whatever. So made sure it works. That's all I've done though. If you look at the prerequisites, if you're familiar with Tauri and V1, the first sections are pretty much the same, pretty similar. We've got a little bit more documentation around the different flavors of Linux, but I think it's pretty much the same. But in Android and iOS, we have to do a little bit more, because on Android, we use the Android Studio to stand up an emulator, and the emulator essentially ends up becoming the window that we like push the information to. And iOS uses Xcode. So this is the bit I can't do it on Windows, and right now I'm set up to stream on Windows. So I'd have to like make sure work stuff doesn't show up on my Mac and get that all set up, and then we could do the iOS side of things. Prince Taigi says, make a video on Tauri update. I would like to make a video on Tauri update. Still working out the details on that. I think I'm going to try to do that as a guest stream, but guest streams are less off the cuff, so I can't just decide to do it this week. I have to plan and schedule it with whoever I'm doing it with. But it's coming. Hopefully I can mute or turn away for that cough. I think the Tauri update would be good as just a video too. But as it is right now, I think we would do that as a guest stream. So TBD on when that is, but it's on my radar, and I know I would like it to be soon. Put it that way. So Android, there is Windows commands. Okay, so I downloaded Android Studio, and then what you need to do is you set up the environment variables, and those environment variables, when you are running the Tauri commands, they need to be in that shell, available in that shell, so that we can like open up the proper things to get the emulator to show up, essentially. So the idea is that we run one command and it opens up all the Android pieces that you need. You don't actually have to be running Android Studio. It's more of just a way to end up getting these dependencies. So if you look at Linux and Mac, and you're familiar with shells, we're basically just setting this as an environment variable. In PowerShell, this is basically like a PowerShell script. What it's doing is it's setting at the user level, in the system at the user level, an environment variable. I am running new shell, which is a shell that it's an alternative to something like PowerShell. And this is running in the, these are difficult names, but terminal. This terminal is literally called terminal. And it's kind of become I feel like it's sort of becoming the main default here. So what I did, instead of setting these environment variables at the like system level, I put it in my new shell config. So you could do the same, like if you've got a bash script or something on startup, these just need to be available. So I went ahead and just set them up here. I think new shell has a new way to set environment variables that I haven't updated to yet, but whatever, this works. If you're using new shell and you happen to be on Windows, this is what I used. I think the only important bit is you may need to update the NDK version. So every time you update your SDK, NDK stuff, I think you might need to go back to this version to bump it. Here, I can go ahead and open up Android Studio. Whoop, that's these Windows. Menu, start menu is just heavy sigh. Android Studio, where are you? Here you are. So I basically started it and installed these, made sure these SDKs were all installed. When you get it all installed and you have Android Studio set up, there's a more actions and SDK manager. I don't know if it specifically has screenshots or anything in here. That might be helpful, but also I wonder if we can just point to docs or something like that, because those are likely going to be more up to date. When you first do that, you get to the screen and there's SDK platforms. I have basically just the latest one API installed, and then in SDK tools, that's where you can start matching these up. So I think I needed to add the NDK, Android SDK command line tools, and maybe the SDK platform tools. I think those are the ones that I added. And then you just hit apply and okay, and then it goes through a whole installation process. So that if you're setting this up for the first time and you get to the Android Studio, to the point where you have installed Android Studio, these would be the next steps. So once that's all set up, we don't actually need this open. We're not going to be running directly through Android Studio. The Tauri command started up for you. So we can just go ahead and close all this. And that's basically, as long as these environment variables are set up, it should work. And then we need to add the targets for Rust. So Rust needs these targets to be able to compile for these mobile platforms. So from there, we can just try a project. I think what should we do? We could do multi-window. We're gonna have to change things around a little bit. Let's try multi-window. That might be the easiest to get going. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to sure, okay. Need to move things around a little bit here. Tauri, Playground. And I think I have it open already, but we will open it again. Oop. I do have it open. We were just looking at, weren't we? Okay, so we are in this multi-web view folder. The thing that we were working on last time that is sort of special to this situation was we were using this window builder to create multiple windows. That's not specifically the window builder is not going to work with what we've got set up. We might be able to still add web views, though, multiple web views. We'll have to see. So just to see that things are working, we have a main window with title multi-web view. I don't know if the label matters at all, but we'll find out. I think what I'm going to end up doing is we should be able to just comment out this whole section. And I think that'll work for a first run. So when you're running or creating an Android app through Tauri, some of the lifting it's doing is taking your code in Rust, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and running it through Kotlin. So we need some of that. Let's see if it says here. We need some of that, those files and whatnot to be able to generate the code that ends up being compiled. So if you haven't done this before, I'm pretty sure you have to do it. I don't know if there's I don't know if there is specifically a mobile guide yet. I don't think there is. So essentially what we end up having to do first is run the init. So Tauri Android init, and that's going to generate a bunch of files, and that's going to show up in this gen folder. So you can see KTS is Kotlin. We've got a bunch of, and I think we can delete this and regenerate it. But this ends up being, I'm not sure if we're supposed to get ignored though. There is definitely pieces of it that are get ignored. But I think the intent is that some of this actually ends up getting committed. So victory, project generated successfully. Nice. So now that we've done that, we can do npm run Tauri Android dev. And what that's going to do is, first of all, it's going to ask what emulator I want. We can, here, let's cancel that actually. In Android Studio, I think the default that it came with for me was the Pixel 3a. When come on, Android Studio, where are you? In the Android Studio, you can add additional emulators. So I happen to be familiar with the Pixel 6, so I decided to add that as an emulator. You go into Virtual Device Manager, and then there's a little plus here. You hit the plus, and then it allows you to select a specific device that you want to add to the list. So then when you're running this command, it will ask you which emulator that you want to use from this list in the device manager. So let's go ahead and run that command again. And I'm going to do 2. It should start up the Android emulator. And if we don't have anything broken with it, we should see our app. Still building. Doing some downloading. Now, I haven't done too much app dev. I've gotten as far as playing around with emulators. I think mostly the Android emulator. I've never really done app dev on iOS or macOS. So I'm kind of excited to play around with it. I haven't had a strong use case for it, but if I can kind of use Tauri and get some of this for free for the projects that it might make sense, this I think that's a good. You're not making a fully native app. There is still WebView components when you're doing a Tauri project. So there might be a subset of projects that don't make sense to be in Tauri, which is fine. But for the ones that might make sense, to just get mobile for free is a pretty good deal. So I'm assuming some of this installation it looks like it's doing some installing for me. Interesting. I did install some of the, it looked like we were on 34. So when I ran it, NDK, we might end up needing to change our NDK version because it looks like we're downloading a bunch of SDKs for 33. So we might not be able to use 34. Hey, look at that. Ta-da! So what is all this green? Oof. Okay, so that looks like we might be good. So I can, if I click in here and say hello, we read. Ta-da! Being human, nice username. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad that going through this on YouTube for y'all to see is helpful. I enjoy it. I kind of enjoy the teaching aspect of it, and the experimentation. I like to play around with it, and it's much more fulfilling if y'all share with my struggles. Doing that alone is not the most fun, but if I can help people along, I'm happy to do it. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. Some of them I might be able to answer. Some of them we may just have to take to Discord later. So we've got a project working. It is just a base level view. So now what I want to try is, I think when we were originally playing around with it, we wanted to see if the multi-web view worked. So this would mean that we currently have like one frame in here. If we could do multiple web views in here, I think we could have like tabs almost, or something in that vein. You know, like, I mean, I guess even tabs isn't a great use case, but like you could have like two apps basically rendered in the same like visible space. So what we have in here right now, the changes we have are around the schema. So our schema gets updated because we now are supporting other platforms, and we want to make sure that we have the permissions set up for those. Hey Lasha, good to see you again. Thanks for stopping by. And then on Android, we have all of these generated files. Apart from that, all we've changed is, with this multi-web view example, is to remove this setup. So this setup, I ran it earlier. I'm pretty sure this is the one I ran earlier, and it gave us an error. We'll go ahead and run it again so we can see that error. But I think effectively what was happening was the window builder is not available on mobile. So there's these, is it config attributes? We can add those to have specific, you know, like on Android, do this. On desktop, do this. to where we can have a different setup based on the platform that we are targeting. So when we added those targets in Rust, that is part of what's like powering these config attributes where we can make a swap, like a different separate code paths. Rebuilding. They might not like this. We might have to kill it and try it again. I don't know if it's going to deal with this error while it's running. Yeah, let's kill it. I think it's stuck. So what's kind of close, like you still get all the gestures and everything. So the app is there. Fun. Okay, so if we run this again, it's gonna ask us, I don't know if we can set a default emulator, but this is what I was expecting to see. So no method named inner size found in struct window builder. So what we're getting is on line 16, this. We're setting a default height, width and height for that main window. I think we could just take that off for now. Let's see what happens. So I think one thing we're definitely gonna run into is we don't have multiple windows. Yeah. So this, oh, add child, interesting. No method named add child found for struct. So here we are. Window. Okay. Window. So we might need to we're going to try this. We have in our let's try it. We're going to take this out. In our configuration, we can set a like default window or multiple. And that's basically what this is. We can also, within our code, put up and start up windows too. That's what we're doing here. So we had two windows that were opening before. We had actually, before I change that here, let me run it so we can see what we were working with before. So if we just run npm Tauri dev, make sure to get a compile for that, and it's going to open up two windows. And we did this 2 streams ago. These labels are like globally unique. So that was what this error was. I changed it from main to main 0. So we have two windows. We have this main window. This is coming in from the configuration. Then additionally, we are creating a new window called main and doing add child 4 times to like initialize the web view into it. So these are 4 separate web views, basically the same exact app every time. And all we did was we took the existing index.html that we had, just copied a bunch of times and like changed the text at the top. So we're rendering 4 separate HTML files here. 5 if you include this one. So like this multi-window thing, I'm like 95% sure that doesn't work on mobile. So what I think I would like to do is see if we can get just to have one window, but have it a multi-web view. And I just want to see what I don't know if it's going to work, but I want to see what the errors are and where we get stuck. So when we ran it, we had an error on the inner size. If we take off this main window, I don't know what it's gonna do. Let's try that out first. So we'll do Android dev. And we're erring on the add child. I guess I'm not surprised about that. It could very well be that this, I mean, I would imagine that we have a window builder still available on Android. But maybe this add child specifically doesn't work on, like the ability to do multi-web view doesn't work on Android yet. And I haven't asked, like I could, you know, we've had a few of the folk that worked on this on stream who could just go ahead and ask them, but this is more fun. Try it out and see what happens. So this is honestly expected because I'm honestly not, I don't really know what the debug tools look like. Like it's working. See, the app is there, but it's empty because we don't have a web view initialized in it. So if we look at window, it's not really going to help us because the expectation is that we can, I'm guessing that we can compile to both platforms, mobile versus desktop. So add child doesn't work. Are we just kind of stuck at that maybe? We can try it with one and just see what happens. I'm guessing that we're gonna, like, this kind of stuff where we're hitting an error before it actually compiles. If we hit an error while it's running, it doesn't seem to handle that. So I think, like, this is the case where we'd have to kill it and then we just rerun it again. And that's gonna give us the actual compile in the error. Yeah. Method not found in window. So we could go ahead and check out the Rust API probably. Is that the... I guess so. We might end up having to dig into Rye or Tau. So add child available on desktop and create feature unstable only. We do have the create feature unstable because multi-web view is considered unstable at the time being. But it looks like add child is only available there. So the builder is available on all platforms, but we can't have multiple windows, multiple web views. And that might strictly be a platform limitation. I kind of wonder if it is. I'll see if I can find out after the stream and I'll just post it in the comments or something. So this is what we're going to get. Basically, these APIs do not exist when we are building for a platform that doesn't support it. So I would like that's a pretty clear error. If we take this out, here, let's actually do it this way. We'll comment out this whole block. The other thing that we could try real quick is if we have multiple windows here. I want to see what the error is here. Main 0, main 1. We can have multiple. Okay. I thought maybe we could, but this seemed like this made it seem like we could. It was just not, doesn't exist yet. I mean, it is still unstable. It's not released per se, so like it's very clearly in process. But thanks for confirming, Amr. For those that aren't aware, Amr's done a whole bunch with this. You have a POC in mind. Is there something that, when you say you have a POC in mind, what, like, just you have an idea of how to accomplish it? I guess my expectation was that we would just need to implement an add child for those platforms. Is there something more that you're planning? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought maybe we were gonna do something different or something more than just like an add child. Yeah, and so Rust on an Android app. I mean, like, I think that's one of the things that really, also, thanks for stopping by. Did Brennan Cancer? I feel like I'm splitting that up in a bad way. Brennan Cancer, I don't know. Thanks for stopping by. Rust is really cool. The places that you can run it on is, I mean, you could do, like, it's getting into Windows, it's getting into Linux, you can run it embedded. Like, I think one of the things, I've got a couple Raspberry Pis. I would kind of like to try getting an Tauri app running on a Raspberry Pi. Like, that would be a cool thing to do. And I don't think that leap is very far. Partly because we're running it with Rust. We're wrapping the thing with Rust. Being Human says, trying to make a project, you want to implement extension-like feature like VS Code extensions. I think it's possible in Tauri. So that's interesting. Extensions or plugins. The other use case, or the other example, I think would be something like Obsidian, if you're familiar with that app, where because it's Electron means that you can basically give it like JavaScript code to just run freely. It doesn't actually need to be like compiled into the binary. You can take this like chunk of JavaScript separately and run it, which is kind of a security issue. I mean, you install any of these extensions or install any of the plugins through Obsidian, and you get a bunch of warnings. You know, this is theoretically untrusted code. It could do whatever to your computer effectively. So part of the important bits with Tauri is that security is a priority. So by making security a priority, we close many of these gaps or holes that kind of enable these extensions or plugin features. I think you could still potentially do it. It would end up being something like you dynamically pull like JavaScript files or something from a like configuration folder. So like plugins get dropped in a specific user configuration folder that app has access to, and it can only access that folder. And then it ends up effectively importing those and using those directly. I think that would probably be the way to use it. I honestly don't know of any examples of anybody doing that yet. But I think that's going to be one of those things that's going to be important to have a pattern established, because it feels like it's ripe with. It would be relatively easy to set it up in a way, I think, where you would make it easier for the app to be compromised. Does that help? It's in the same vein of, or similar to, something like the sidecar feature. When you're creating and bundling a Tauri app, what it's doing is it's taking your Rust code and your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, bundling that into like a single binary. Once you have that single binary, that's the thing that runs. And it's like initializing that HTML that's been compiled in the web view. That doesn't necessarily stop you from the Rust side of things grabbing and running code as Rust can just do normally, like outside of the Tauri ecosystem. You theoretically have system access with with Rust. So I'm looking at the V1 docs right now because I don't know that we've got much for. I don't know that we have much for documentation for this. Embedding external binaries. So like you can bring in separate binaries and run those separately. I don't know that would specifically help you with extensions. I think what you end up wanting is the file system access. Do we have that in the docs? We might have it in beta. I feel like I remember seeing it somewhere. Its features, file system. So here the idea is that given in V2, given a proper access ACL, access control list, you set up the permissions with access to the specific folder or specific path. You can see here is security. Basically, you're saying when you run this program, I'm only going to have access to this folder, and then you could do file system access, and it would be similar to loading and then parsing it via like a dynamic import. That's probably going to be the way to do it, but I haven't seen any examples or anything, so hopefully that helps. So Brendan Cancer says, I'm learning Rust next in Postgres inside Docker. Interesting. As a Tauri app? So you're doing Nest.js and... Wait. Next.js and Postgres. I'm not sure how Rust comes into play. I'm curious. Feel free to expand. Okay, so Amr confirmed not available on Dust, or not available on mobile right now. Potentially planned, but just it's in the works. So we can try this. I just want to see what the error is. I think that's gonna end up being the same case, but because multi-web view doesn't work, but it can. So I don't think there's a technical limitation there. It's just hasn't been implemented yet limitation. The multiple windows, though, I think is a technical limitation. And this is still open. Yeah. Okay. So it runs. We don't get any specific errors, and I'm guessing what's happening is it's just rendering that first window. Do we have... I mean, we could specify which one. I think it's just running the first window, so we actually don't get any error with that if we have multiple windows. Okay. So if we wanted to make an app that had multi web views at the moment, we also wanted to build it and run it on mobile, we would have to add a config attribute to basically skip this piece if we're on mobile, which is perfect. Well, I mean, it would functionally work. Your app would be missing out on that feature though. Burn Cancer says Next.js, Rust backend, and Postgres. Okay. So Next.js is just doing it's a Rust API, and Next.js is more of a static site generation tool. I know Next.js is sort of, I feel like it's pushing itself towards full stack. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to kill this because it's gonna freak out. So the other thing I wanted to try was transparency. Let's go ahead, and we were playing around with Tauri window transparency. Actually, I still have that open. No, I don't. Okay. We'll close the playground. So I actually still haven't committed this. But last week we were playing around with this. Let's go ahead and just run this Tauri dev. We might need to wait for it to finish doing Rust analyzer stuff, but so it looks like it's not working, but it is. The idea with this is it's transparent. We pulled in Excalibur. Let's get out of Zen mode, stroke. We can draw on the screen. So if you've got a canvas that is transparent, that. Pretty cool. I think I'm actually gonna just, while I'm looking at it, I'm gonna take off Zen mode here. So we do, at least in my case, like the default is black, and that ends up being pretty hard to see. So that, like, as a desktop app, I think this is a pretty neat idea. I need to poke some of the Excalibur or TL draw devs. Nudge, nudge. Hey, want to make this? Because this, I think, would be a fun thing for like streaming or screen sharing. If you have like a shared app or something like that where you can draw on somebody's screen, screenshot it, and include it in the Excalibur for like reference later. I think that's kind of a neat way to work and pair. So I'm curious how this is going to look on Android. So we got to do npm Tauri Android init. I have staged the changes, so we are going to see the changes separately, which is the Android project generated. And then we should be able to just do npm run Tauri Android dev. Let's see what this looks like. We still do have our emulator running, so it doesn't ask you which emulator you would like to run. So that actually saves us a little time for that like startup and shutdown. We don't have to continue to reopen the emulator every time. Almost there. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. Does it need Android Studio installed? Yes, it's using Android Studio. If you look at the, we ran through it real quick at the beginning of the stream. In prerequisites, there's a section configured for mobile targets, so you have to go through that. It is using Android Studio, NDK, and a bunch of these SDKs. You don't actually need to run it though. when you run npm run Tauri dev or equivalent, it's basically like running the command lines, or it's running the commands on the command line to start up these things for you. So it'll automatically start the emulator for you if you haven't started it up already. So it's sort of a set it up once and then you kind of don't need to think about it again. Ish. If versions change, you have to think about it a little bit, but it's not awful by any means. We're not getting anything. Oh, we got 2 apps. I don't know which one that is. I'm gonna close it and we'll just restart it. I just want to make sure that this is actually we'll shut it down. Then that way you can Bren can see what it looks like when we start it up. So once you have this set up, theoretically one-time setup, you're opting into having these targets. So anytime you do an update, I'm pretty certain those will come along for the ride. So it'll just be like if there's a new version of Android, you need to like bump the versions of these. But once that's set up, then you just do npm run. So nr is an alias, npm run Tauri Android dev. And it's going to ask you which emulator you want to use. I've specifically added the Pixel 6 Pro. It came with, when I just installed it, it came with Pixel 3a. So if you don't have the emulator started up, it just asks you which one you want to do, and you give it a value, and it starts it up for you. I guess it would be this way, right? Yep. I think this is going to be a blank screen, though. I don't know how it deals with the transparency, which is sort of the whole point of us playing around with this. your PC is potato. You mirror your Android device using SCRCPY Scrippy? Is that a thing that you say? You say out the letters? I don't think I've heard of that. Ooh, whoa! My hand was shifted. Okay. Okay. You know, I might have actually used this. Oh, no, maybe not. It's a screen mirroring application that allows the control of an Android device. Got it. So what you're doing, instead of running and targeting an emulator, you're actually doing dev and targeting your actual device plugged in via USB. That makes sense. I mean, I think like that's not even a bad workflow in general, because I'm assuming the emulator is pretty solid, but also there's always like weird hardware things. So there's definitely value in being able to have that set up and do it. Uses ADB. I'm only vaguely familiar with ADB. Honestly, I think the last time I looked at it was wiring up my TV in my living room is an Android TV, or it's got an Android TV on it, and I hooked it up to Home Assistant, so I had to go into all those like Android protocol stuff to turn on dev mode, so I can turn it on and control it from my phone or whatever. So does ADB, what does that stand for? I knew at one point, but I don't remember now. It's like the developer tools or whatever, right? Developer bridge, debug bridge. Android debug bridge. So when being human, when you say it uses ADB, are you saying that the emulator is using ADB, or that connection over through SCR? And that's hard to say. SCR CPY. That's ADB, right? I think it's the latter. The SCR CPY is using ADB. Oh my goodness. To handle and control the phone. Now the we get some output here. None of it is terribly helpful for me though. Rust standard out error. Find, okay. Failed to read DNS config. So I know like when we're developing for desktop, right? We can use like the Edge dev tools or the WebKit dev tools. I'm not familiar enough with Android to know like what is going to be the best way to debug this. Like this is not showing me anything. I'm assuming some of it has to do with the fact that my my configuration means that it is probably using APIs or something that it doesn't support. But I have no idea. And this doesn't seem to specifically say anything. So I'm assuming that if I would take off all of these, I'm guessing it's gonna work. So let's go ahead and try that. I think we can get a rebuild. I don't know if it's actually gonna change and update the app. So it sounds like y'all have done a little bit of Android dev. Have you used Kotlin and or like native Java or what have you for Android before? You've done it through the ADB connection? I've played with the emulator a little bit, but just enough to like see what it does and whatnot. I've never really had a strong need for wanting to do an app. You did React Native? Okay. Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. Like, I tried it just to see what it's about, get an idea of how it works, and I don't know. Mobile has never been like there's so many barriers to cross. Getting in an app store, and it just doesn't seem like something I'm interested in dealing with unless I'm getting paid for it. And I get paid for other things that don't involve app dev, so, or at least mobile app dev. So I don't need to think about it at the moment. But all right, not certain what it's doing. We're gonna kill it and give it another shot. I can tell like when it seems like when it gets stuck and there's no output or anything that's happening. My fans spin up on my computer. Okay, so here's the app. We're getting, all right. So we got the app. There we go. Now what I want to do is I want to like slowly bring back these features. So we removed all these 4. I'm guessing, I don't know if the other ones are going to make a difference. They might just be like no ops. I think transparency might be one of them that's like doing weird things. You can access DevTools window manager through Chrome or Edge. Oh, okay. So if we would go into like
Okay, this is gonna, okay, Chrome inspect, got it. Thank you. / inspect, I'm assuming that, that dash is, yeah. So then, okay, there we go, yep. We are getting web view on phone, yep. Seems right. There we go, yep. Sweet. So these are the Chrome dev tools. It's all my devices. That's gonna be bonkers. We're just gonna close that. I don't think anything is really gonna be a problem showing it there, but you know, we'll turn it off. So the Chrome dev tools, it's already set up with the this, which one is it? There's a setting in here somewhere. Is it this one? It's gotta be this one, right? No. Yeah. It's already set up with, if you do this, the toggle, you can pick specific like emulated screen sizes or whatever. So we got that. All right. So now if I do, transparent, so all of these seem to work. Let's kill it and let's just restart it just to make sure. I'm guessing that these are gonna just no op, which is fine. I'm not like, I don't need them to work. The transparency though is probably gonna be that one kicker that I don't know if it's gonna work, but we'll find out. I've never actually seen anything do transparency. So I'm just kind of assuming that it doesn't work because nobody's done it yet. Okay, so this is working. Sweet. I think this ends up just like, it's connected to the Tauri localhost, so I think it just will continue to refresh. Right? Oops. Doesn't seem like it did. Because this is, if I do it here, this isn't updating, so maybe it's not connected anymore. It seems to work. So let's go ahead and we'll kill this and let's try to put in the transparency. And see if we get any errors. It's entirely possible we need a permission and then it actually does work. If this does work, it would actually be kind of fun to do. There's another app that we made called Redacted, where the idea is you can spawn multiple windows and cover like parts of your screen. So if you're taking a screenshot or something like that, it's a quick way to just like hide parts that you don't want to share. All right, we have. So I don't think this actually is reconnecting. I'm gonna close that. It's empty. If we look at the Chrome inspect, when this opens up, we'll open and then just close this. Yeah, so speaking of TV, gets the job done. Could the web view not even be starting up? Like, could we have a failure before the web view even starts up? That wouldn't allow us to use the Chrome DevTools. I think that's entirely possible because we're not getting access to it here. Well, does this work? Oh, did I break that? Do I need my commands working right now? I don't think this is gonna work. Yeah, okay, that one works. The maybe more versions / copy of the app is being installed. I don't think so, because if I do, we can change this now. If I take off transparency, I suspect what's happening is that the web view is not starting up, so we're not even getting the dev tools because the web view doesn't exist in there. I don't know if this is going to work. We might actually have to restart Tauri, but if all I change is that, it works. So I think it's specifically that transparency. Yeah, Chrome Inspect is kind of flaky. You have been in this situation a couple of times. Okay, so it might not be the transparency thing. Do you know offhand? Do you have any idea if transparency works at Almer? We're gonna go ahead and kill it. Start it up. So if we refresh this, I'm guessing it's not going to show up. Transparency should work on the WebView widget, although the Android app itself is not. Okay. So if you made like the window background color different and you did transparency, that would show through. So like you're not going to be able to make the app container different color or like clear to where you could see through to the OS or like a separate app. That makes sense. It doesn't, if you have transparency on it all, it doesn't seem to be working because this works. So it shows up. It shows up if you have transparency off. I suppose I could just do it like this. Type in false there, but this is gonna like flip out, so I have to restart. I don't know if the dev tools are gonna connect. But we just get a white web view or a white window. So I'm guessing there's something with the transparency that it doesn't like. So I guess even if transparency worked, it's really not going to do anything useful, it feels like. I feel like anything you could do with transparency would be like showing through the white background. Like there's no, I don't see any use case for it. Okay, here, I wanted to see this before too. Whoop. If I click in there, it just disappeared. So now it's just disconnected. That's kind of a bummer. Oh, I guess also it doesn't exist. So it just disappears from that list. So I think there's something wonky with transparency, and I believe it's failing before the web view even starts, which is why we're not getting the DevTools. That's what it feels like. I mean, honestly though, like I don't see any use case for it. So like, so if we go here and we say transparency is false, and we start this, I think that Chrome Inspect still pulls. I suspect that when this is done compiling and it shows up in the window in the emulator, that we would see it up here. So my guess is that like the web view is crashing or something if you set the transparency. You see some warnings in the console there related to transparency. Oh, over here. I saw green, just assumed green was okay. Yeah, see, it shows up right away. So I don't even need to like refresh that or anything. Oh, it's gonna be before watch. Where was my last command? Here, let's kill it so we don't keep getting So where did I last run it? So this would have been, all right. Is this it? Let's just run it again. Then we got something clean to work off of. So if we do transparency true, and we run it, we get the Vite build for the front end part of it. We're gonna get a compile. Says success, and then we start getting the errors, and this is what we wanted to look at. So in our emulator we have the white window, so it seems that we're also not getting it showing up in the list, so it definitely seems that we're getting some sort of crash, and we want to look at this. I mean, this says transparency. I assumed it was because I had this folder. What did I name this? I assumed it was this. I had named it transparency. I mean, this is kind of weird. Unexpected CPU variant. OpenGL render. Do you think these errors are, is this what you're looking at, Amr? I kind of wonder, might work on a real device. I don't know if I'm set up to like show that very well. We could try it though, off stream. But again, like if it's just going to be transparency for that WebView layer and our app container is still white, what, you know, what's the use case there? I feel like if you're going to go down that route, you might as well just work with multi-WebView, the multi-WebView functionality once that lands. Because what would be the other use cases for transparency if you can't see through to some other app or something? Being Human says, just an off-topic question. Why do developers always have music going on while they code? I think it's, I mean, everybody's different. For me, it's a focus thing. When I am coding by myself, I like to have background noise because it's sort of, it helps me focus, which is weird. And when some, you know, so some people might consider that odd, but like, that's how it works for me. When I'm streaming, I like the music because, so I'm hearing the same music you're hearing. Because I'm sitting here talking to myself. When you're on a video call, at least you have it, the voice back and forth. You have, it feels like a little bit more of a connection. So if I have noise in the background, it makes this conversation feel less one-sided for me. It makes it feel more personal. There's also permission you can get to draw your app over other apps like Messenger Bubble. Oh, yeah. Does that work with the WebView API? Because I guess that would end up being if the thing you care about is transparency, well, the app container can also be transparent. Yeah, not a very good Android developer. Here. This is like as far as I've ever gotten with Android. I got something showing up. It renders. That's about as far as I've ever gotten with Android dev. Haven't needed to dive any further. I think that is something that would be something cool to explore, though. I guess that would make transparency reasonably useful then. You can create the bubble and just add the widget inside it with transparency. So like that, rather than having... So on desktop, you have multi-windows. So you get many windows, and within each window, you can have multiple web views. On Android, you can have windows, but you can have a main window and or widgets. Can you do that on iOS? I don't know if you can do that on iOS. But if the widget could be effectively the same, like if it could be full size effectively, I don't know if it would complain about that, but you could have like, if the idea is I want to be able to like draw over the top of another app, or I want to put a square or something over this piece of the UI, so when I take a screenshot, you can't see it. Okay. So it seems like there's potentially things we can do here, but it's just like definitely not in the cards at the moment. You can have multiple activities, but only one can be active at a time. Okay. But like if we get one widget that is like taking up the whole screen, we can then start working with like a canvas. Like we could draw squares in a canvas. We don't need to worry about having. So like with redacted, it was partly to play around with the window API where we can spawn up multiple windows and then use those windows without decorations to actually redact information or like draw a square over a thing. And there's potentially other ways you could do that, but like that was a quick way to do it and we got to explore that API. That doesn't really work on Android. But if you can have one widget which has, or I guess it would have to be a widget, right? That is drawn over the top of another app that could cover the whole screen, and we could use the canvas to make these little like bubbles or blocks. We could make that happen, right? So you could draw a square on a canvas and then have that square set to whatever color you want. And so same functionality, it's just now we're doing it in one window through a canvas rather than multiple windows through web views. Nifty. So now I'm asking you all the questions. Cheers. Amar's great person. I appreciate all you do, honestly. These files are generated, right? But we're expecting the user to actually push those in Git. So like, I'm presuming theoretically we could like enable that through Kotlin. Does that sound? What is this icon? Is kind of a fun icon. So like we've got I don't have any of the Kotlin stuff installed, so we're gonna This isn't going to look great, but it's basically generating chunks that let us execute stuff. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the big difference is rather than the Rust CLI being the thing that like runs it and starts up the app, we're instead using Kotlin or on iOS Xcode to run and then start up the other pieces. So the entry point is slightly different on mobile. So that's what you see here. This is a function in Kotlin to actually run our build scripts and our start scripts. Here's the targets. These may be familiar with our setup previously. ABI list. So it doesn't seem like there's not too much here. So like I think that would be the question is if you're using something like React Native, I know it's able to do the bundling. You can do a whole like React, like do everything just straight away at React app. But at some point you start wanting to do like native widgets, and React Native / Expo enables that, allowing you to write native widgets for each platform. I think that's probably my biggest curiosity is if we need native specific functionality or permissions like this, this draw over permission with the widgets. Can we do that? Yeah, like so we can technically edit it here and do that. Because once we do the Tauri, the npm run Tauri Android init, we now have, I mean, there's going to be potentially a little work in like keeping that up to date if we customize it, right? But we have the ability to customize it, so I think we could do that. But again, this is like way far outside of my my abilities at this point, as far as Android is concerned in Kotlin. But it's not off the table. I think the like dealing with the bug is obviously going to be the first thing. That might be an interesting topic for a future stream. What does it look like to take the native experience on iOS or Android further than what you might get just from a WebView directly, plus a little bit of Rust code? Cool. Well, I don't know that there's anything specifically else. I just saw the drop showing up. For some reason, this. I think I can show this. This Android Studio. The feed is like super delayed. I was like, wait a minute, someone do the drop? No, it's just like delayed by like 10 minutes. But yeah, 25. Okay, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why my feed is so delayed. Yeah. Weird, whatever. This, their YouTube's dashboard leaves something to be desired. Anyways, I don't know that there's much else that we wanted to do. We got Android working. I think we experimented with some of the APIs that we thought might not work, and we wanted to see where they were at. Basically, break what we can break, test the edges. funnel my little kiddo. She's testing the boundaries, see where those edges lie. Sometimes it's frustrating as heck, but you know, that's how they learn, and that's how we're learning. See what we can do, test the edges, test the boundaries. So I think mostly at this time, if you're doing an Android app, you're going to be doing a single window, maybe a little functionality through Rust. I'm curious about the file system. The file system stuff might be kind of interesting too. But the multiple web views, transparency stuff is still in process, and some of that's actually marked unstable. So even the multiple web views, add child, which we're using in that other example, that's not even like hit stable yet. So, you know, thanks for stopping by, Armor. Appreciate all your insight. So you can make an Android app and you can make an iOS app. Some of these like really unique desktop features that we've been playing around with, though, we're less able to do that. But like we're not really able to do that yet on mobile or at all potentially. Yeah, it is what it is, I guess, you know. I think that like the draw over widget thing would probably be the piece that I would be most interested in exploring there. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, and if anybody is interested in that, that's probably work that is going to need funding. I suspect that's not going to be something that just becomes a feature added to the feature list over time. Somebody's going to need it and want it and have to go through the work to implement it. Because I can't imagine that it's going to be easy to do in a way that would be dynamic to where anybody else could use it. I think you can potentially do it directly in Kotlin. But you're talking Android devs at that point doing it. So, all right. I think that's what we're going to call it. I don't have anything else to It worked. I just didn't. Do I not have it on that screen? I don't have it on that screen. That's probably why. So, I guess my 3D command does seem to work. Yeah, it works. I just don't have it turned on the other scene. Gee. Okay, well, we'll fix it. We'll have a stream next week. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be. I've got a couple that I'm trying to like get figured out as far as timing goes on multiple levels, and I want to bring some guests on, and all of that takes time to figure out. So I'm not quite certain what we'll do next week. We do want to work with a few things, updates, like looking at different dev tools and the tray apps, but we're all TBD right now. If you have any other ideas for what we should do coming up here, feel free to leave a comment below, and I will see y'all next Tuesday. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.